Hell's Angels, The Strange and Terrible Saga, by Hunter S Thompson. To the friends who lent me money and kept me mercifully unemployed, no writer can function without them. Again, thanks. Hunter. The idea for this book came from Kerry McWilliams, editor of The Nation, who asked me to write an article on the weird phenomena of motorcycle gangs. The article appeared in The Nation in April 1965. Kerry's ideas and suggestions gave the book a framework and perspective that it might not otherwise have had. In my own country, I am in a far-off land. I am strong, but I have no force or power. I win all, yet I remain a loser. At break of day, I say good night. When I lie down, I have a great fear of falling. Friends swallowing all. 1. California, Labor Day weekend. Early, with ocean fog still in the streets. Outlaw motorcyclists wearing chains, shades, and greasy Levi's roll out from damp garages, all-night diners, and cast-off one-night pads in Frisco, Hollywood, Purdue, and East Oakland, heading for the Monterey Peninsula, north of Big Sur. The menace is loose again. The Hells Angels, the 100-carat headline, running fast and loud on the early morning freeway. Low in the saddle, nobody smiles, jamming crazy through traffic, at 90 miles an hour down the center stripe, missing by inches. Like Genghis Khan on an iron horse, a monster steed with a fiery anus, flat out through the eye of a beer can and up your daughter's leg, with no quarter asked and none given. Show the squares some class. Give them a whiff of those kicks they'll never know. Ah, these righteous dudes, they love to screw it up. Little Jesus, the Gimp, Chocolate George, Buzzard, Zorro, Hambone, Clean Cut, Tiny, Terry the Tramp, Frenchie, Moldy, Marvin, Mother Miles, Dirty Ed, Chuck the Duck, Fat Freddy, Filthy Phil, Charger Charlie the Child Molester, Crazy Cross, Puff, Magoo, Animal, and at least 100 others. Tents for the action, long hair in the wind, beards and bandanas flapping, earrings, armpits, chain whips, swastikas, and stripped-down Harleys flashing chrome as traffic on 101 moves over, nervous, to let the formation pass, like a burst of dirty thunder. They call themselves Hell's Angels. They ride, rape, and raid like marauding cavalry, and they boast that no police force can break up their criminal motorcycle fraternity. True, The Man's Magazine, August 1965. They're not bad guys individually. I tell you one thing, I'd rather have a bunch of Hell's Angels on my hands than these civil rights demonstrators. When it comes to making trouble for us, the demonstrators are much worse. A jailer at the San Francisco City Prison. Some of them are pure animals. They'd be animals in any society. These guys are outlaw types who should have been born 100 years ago. Then they would have been gunfighters. Bernie Jarvis, a charter member of the Hells Angels, who later became a San Francisco Chronicle police reporter. We're the 1%ers, man. The 1% that don't fit and don't care. So don't talk to me about your doctor bills and your traffic warrants. I mean, you get your woman and your bike and your banjo, and I mean you're on your way. We punched our way out of 100 rumbles, man. Stayed alive with our boots and our fists. We're royalty among motorcycle outlaws, baby. A Hell's Angel, speaking for the permanent record. The run was on. Outlaws from all over the state rolled in packs towards Monterey. North from San Bernardino and Los Angeles on 101. South from Sacramento on 50. South from Oakland, Hayward, and Richmond on 17. And from Frisco on the Coast Highway. The hardcore, the outlaw elite, were the Hells Angels. Wearing the winged death's head on the back of their sleeveless jackets, and packing their mamas behind them on big chopped hogs. They rode with a fine unwashed arrogance, secure in their reputation as the rottenest motorcycle gang in the whole history of Christendom. From San Francisco, in a separate formation, came the Gypsy Jokers, 3 dozen in all, the number 2 outlaw club in California, starved for publicity, and with only 1 chapter. The Jokers could still look down on such as the Residents, Road Rats, Night Riders, and Question Marks, also from the Bay Area. Gomorrah, with Sodom 500 miles to the south and a vast mad bowl of Los Angeles, home turf for the Satan slaves. Number 3 in the outlaw hierarchy. Custom bike specialist with a taste for the flesh of young dogs. Flashy headbands, and tender young blondes with lobotomy eyes. The slaves were the class of Los Angeles, and their women clung tight to the leather backs of these dog-eating, crotch-busting fools as they headed north for their annual party with the Hells Angels, who even then viewed the LA bunch with a friendly condescension, which the slaves didn't mind, for they could dump with impunity on other southern clubs, the Coffin Cheaters, Iron Horsemen, Galloping Gooses, Comancheros, Stray Satans, and a homeless fringe element of human censors so foul that not even the outlaw clubs, north or south, would claim them except in a fight when an extra chain or beer bomb might make the crucial difference. Over and over again, I have said that there is no way out of the present impasse. If we were wide awake, we would be instantly struck by the horrors which surround us. We would drop our tools, quit our jobs, deny our obligations, pay no taxes, observe no laws, and so on. Could the man or woman who is thoroughly awakened possibly do the crazy things which are now expected of him or her at every moment of the day? Henry Miller, In the World of Sex, 1,000 copies printed, by J&H, for Friends of Henry Miller, 1941. People just have to learn to stay out of our way. We'll bust up everyone who gets in our way. Hell's Angel talking to police. On the morning of the Monterey Run, Labor Day, 1964, Terry the Tramp woke up naked and hurting all over. The night before, he'd been stomped and chain-whipped outside an Oakland bar by the Nine Diablos, a rival East Bay cycle club. I'd hit one of their members earlier, he explained, and they didn't appreciate it. I was with 2 other angels, but they left a little bit before me, and as soon as they were gone, these bastard Diablos jumped me outside the bar. They messed me up pretty good, so we spent half the night looking for them. The search was futile, and just before dawn, Terry went back to Scragg's small house in San Leandro, where he was living with his wife and 2 children. Scraggs, a 37-year-old ex-pug who once fought Bobo Olson, was the oldest angel then riding, with a wife and 2 children of his own. But when Terry came down from Sacramento that summer to look for a job in the Bay Area, Scraggs offered a bed and board. The 2 wives got along, the kids meshed, and Terry found a job on the assembly line at a nearby General Motors plant, in itself a tribute to whatever human flexibility remains at the shop level in the American labor movement. For Terry, at a glance, looked hopelessly unemployable, like a cross between Joe Palooka and the Wandering Jew. He is 6 feet 2 inches tall, 210 pounds heavy, with massive arms, a full beard, shoulder-length black hair, and a wild, jabbering demeanor not calculated to soothe the soul of any personnel specialist. Beyond that, in his 27 years, he has piled up a tall and ugly police record, a multitude of arrests from petty theft and battery to rape, narcotics offenses, and public cunnilingus. And all this without a felony conviction, being officially guilty of nothing more than what any spirited citizen might commit in some drunk or violent moment of animal weakness. Yeah, but that rap sheet's all bullshit, he insists. Most of those charges are phony. I've never even thought of myself as a criminal. I don't work at it. I guess I'm not greedy enough. Everything I do is natural, 'cause I need to. And then, after a moment, but I guess I'm pushing my luck, even if I'm not a criminal. Pretty soon they'll nail me for one of these goddamn things, and then it's goodbye, Terry, for a whole lot of years. I think it's about time I cut out, went east, maybe to New York or Australia. I had a card in Actors Equity once. I lived in Hollywood. Hell, I can make it anywhere, even if I am a fuck-up. On another Saturday, he might have slept until 2 or 3 in the afternoon, then gone out again with a dozen or so of the brethren, to find the Diablos, and whip them down in a jelly. But a Labor Day run is the biggest event in the Hells Angels calendar. It is the annual gathering of the whole outlaw clan, a massive 3-day drunk that nearly always results in some wild free-swinging action, and another rude shock for the squares. No angel would miss it for any reason except jail or crippling injury. The Labor Day run is the outlaw's answer to New Year's Eve. It is a time for sharing the wine jug, pummeling old friends, random pornification, and general full-dress madness, depending on the weather and how many long-distance calls are made the week before. Anywhere from 200 to 1,000 outlaws will show up, half of them already drunk by the time they get there. By 9 o'clock that morning, both Terry and Scraggs were on their feet. Vengeance on the Diablos could wait. Today, the run. Terry lit a cigarette, examined the bumps and welts on his body, then pulled on a pair of crusty Levi's, heavy black boots, no underwear, and a red sweatshirt smelling of old wine and human grease. Scraggs drank a beer while his wife heated water for instant coffee. The children had been put to relatives the night before. The sun was hot outside. Across the bay, San Francisco was still covered in late-lifting fog. The bikes were gassed and polished. All that remained was the gathering of any loose money, or marijuana, that might be laying around, lashing the sleeping bags to the bikes, and donning the infamous colors. The all-important colors. The uniform, as it were. The crucial identity, which the Attorney General of California has described with considerable accuracy in a fuzzy but much-quoted official document titled The Hells Angels Motorcycle Clubs. The emblem of the Hells Angels, termed colors, consists of an embroidered patch of a winged skull wearing a motorcycle helmet. Just below the wing of the emblem are the letters MC. Over this is a band bearing the words Hells Angels. Below the emblem is another patch bearing the local chapter name, which is usually an abbreviation for the city or locality. These patches are sewn on the back of a usually sleeveless denim jacket. In addition, members have been observed wearing various types of Luftwaffe insignia and reproductions of German iron crosses. Many affect beards, and their hair is usually long and unkempt. Some wear a single earring and a pierced earlobe. Frequently, they have been observed to wear belts made of a length of polished motorcycle drive chain, which can be unhooked and used as a flexible bludgeon. The Hells Angels seem to have a preference for large, heavy-duty American-made motorcycles, Harley-Davidsons. Club members usually use a nickname, designated as their legal name, and are carried on club rolls under that name. Some clubs provide that initiates shall be tattooed, the cost of which is included in the initiation fee. Probably the most universal common denominator and identification of Hells Angels is their generally filthy condition. Investigating officers consistently report these people, both club members and their female associates, seem badly in need of a bath. Fingerprints are a very effective means of identification because a high percentage of Hells Angels have criminal records. Some members of the Hells Angels, as well as members of other disreputable motorcycle clubs, belong to what is alleged to be an elite group termed one-percenters, which meets monthly at various places in California. The local Hells Angels clubs usually meet weekly. Requirements for membership or authority to wear the one-percenter badge are unknown at this time. Another badge worn by some members bears the number 13. It is reported to represent the 13th letter of the alphabet, M, which in turn stands for marijuana, and indicates the wearer thereof is a user of the drug. This compact description of rancid criminal sleaziness is substantially correct, except for the hocus-pocus about the one-percenters. All angels wear this patch, as do most other outlaws, and all it means is that they are proud to be part of the alleged 1% of bike riders, whom the American Motorcycle Association refuses to claim. The AMA is the sporting arm of the Motorcycle, Scooter, and Allied Trades Association, a fast-growing motorcycle lobby that is seeking desperately to establish a respectable image, an image the Hells Angels have consistently queered. We condemn them, says an AMA director. They'd be condemned if they rode horses, mules, surfboards, bicycles, or skateboards. Regretfully, they pick motorcycles. The AMA claims to speak for all decent motorcyclists, yet its 50,000 or so members rode less than 5% of the 1,500,000 motorcycles registered in the United States in 1965. As one of the trade magazines noted, that left a lot of outlaws unaccounted for. Terry and Scraggs left the house around 10, taking it easy on the 2-mile run through downtown Oakland, keeping the engine noise down, aware of the stares from passing motorists and people on street corners, observing stop signs and speed limits, then suddenly accelerating a half block from the house of Tommy, vice president of the local chapter, where the others were waiting. Tommy was living on a quiet, deteriorating residential street in East Oakland, an old neighborhood with small, once white frame houses, sitting close to each other on tiny lots and sparse front lawns, worn down by generations of newsboys delivering the Oakland Tribune. Now, on this holiday morning, his neighbors were out on front porches or living room windows, watching the awful show build up. By 11, about 30 Hells Angels were there, blocking the narrow street, shouting, drinking beer, brushing green dye on their beards, gunning their engines, adjusting their costumes, and knocking each other around, just to get the feel of things. The girls stood quietly in a group, wearing tight slacks, kerchiefs, and sleeveless blouses or sweaters, with boots and dark glasses, uplift bras, bright lipstick, and the wary expressions of half-bright souls turned mean and nervous from too much bitter wisdom in too few years. Like the angels, the girls were mainly in their 20s, although some were obvious teenagers, and a few were aging whores, looking forward to a healthy outdoor weekend. In any gathering of Hell's Angels, from 5 to a possible 150, there is no doubt who is running the show. Ralph Sonny Barger, the maximum leader, a 6-foot, 170-pound warehouse man from East Oakland, the coolest head in the lot, and a tough, quick-thinking dealer when any action starts. By turns, he is a fanatic, a philosopher, a brawler, a shrewd compromiser, and a final arbitrator. To the Oakland Angels, he is Ralph. Everybody else calls him Sonny. Although when the party gets wild and loose, he answers to names such as Prez, Papa, and Daddy. Barger's word goes unquestioned, although many of the others could take him in 2 minutes if it ever came to a fight. But it never does. He rarely raises his voice, except in a rumble with outsiders. Any dissenters in the ranks are handled quietly at the regular Friday night meetings, or they simply fade out of the picture and change their life pattern so as never again to cross paths with any group of angels. If the gathering at Tommy's was a little disorganized, it was because Sonny was serving time in the Santa Rita Rehabilitation Center for possession of marijuana. With Sonny in jail, the others were keeping the action to a minimum, even though Tommy, in his quiet, disaffiliated sort of way, was running the show pretty well. At 26, he was a year younger than Barger, blonde, clean-shaven, with a wife and 2 children, making $180 a week as a construction worker. He knew he was only filling in for the Prez, but he also knew that the Oakland Angels had to make a tough, full-strength appearance at the Labor Day run. Anything less would forfeit the spiritual leadership back to Southern California, to the San Bernardino chapter, the founding fathers, as it were, who started the whole thing in 1950 and issued all new charters for nearly 15 years. But mounting police pressure in the South was causing many angels to seek refuge in the Bay Area. By 1965, Oakland was on its way to becoming the capital of the Hells Angels world. Prior to their ear-splitting departure, there was a lot of talk about the Diablos, and what manner of lunacy or strange drug had caused them to commit such a sure fatal error as an attack on a lone angel. Yet this was a routine beef, postponed and forgotten as they moved into the freeway for an easy 2-hour run to Monterey. Author's note: within a month, the Diablos had disbanded. Terrorized by a series of stompings, beatings, and chain whippings, the angels hunted them down one by one and did them in. Things like that don't happen very often, Terry explained later. Other clubs don't mess with us, because when they do, well, that's the end of them. By noon, it was so hot that many of the riders had taken off their shirts and opened their black vests so the colors flapped out behind them like capes, and the oncoming traffic could view their naked chests for good or ill. The southbound lanes were crowded with taxpayers, heading out for a Labor Day weekend that suddenly seemed tinged with horror as the angel band swept past. This animal crowd on big wheels, going somewhere public, all noise and hair and bust-out raping instincts. The temptation for many a motorist was to swing a hard left with no warning and to crush these arrogant scorpions. At San Jose, an hour south of Oakland, the formation was stopped by 2 state highway patrolmen, causing a traffic jam for 45 minutes at the junction of 17 and 101. Some people stopped their cars entirely just to watch. Others slowed to 10 or 15 miles an hour. As traffic piled up, there were vapor loss, oil over, and minor collisions. They wrote tickets for everybody they could, said Terry. Things like seats too low, bars too high, no mirror, no handhold for the passenger, and like always, they checked us for old warrants, citations we never paid, every other goddamn thing I could think of. But the traffic was really piling up, man, with people staring at us and all, and finally, by God, a highway patrol captain showed up and chewed those bastards good for creating a hazard, or whatever he called it. We had a big laugh, and then we took off again. We get treated good here. Most other places we get thrown out of town. Fringy from Purdue, talking to a reporter not many hours before the Angels were thrown out of town. Between San Jose and the turnoff to Monterey, 101 rolls gracefully through the rich farming foothills of the Santa Cruz Mountains. The Hells Angels, riding 2 abreast in each lane, seemed out of place in little towns like Coyote and Gilroy. People ran out of taverns and dry goods stores to stare at these fabled big city Huns. Local cops waited nervously at intersections, hoping the Angels would pass quietly and not cause trouble. It was almost as if some far-ranging band of Viet Cong guerrillas had appeared, trotting fast in a tight formation down the middle of Main Street, bound for some bloody rendezvous that nobody in town even cared to know about, as long as the dirty buggers kept moving. The Angels try to avoid trouble on the road. Even a minor arrest in a country town at the start of a holiday weekend can mean 3 days in jail, missing the party, and a maximum fine when they finally come to court. They know, too, that in addition to the original charge, usually a traffic violation or disorderly conduct, they will probably be accused of resisting arrest, which can mean 30 days, a jail haircut, and another fine of $150 or so. Now, after many a painful lesson, they approach small towns the same way a traveling salesman from Chicago approaches a known speed trap in Alabama. The idea, after all, is to reach the destination, not to lock horns with hayseed cops along the way. The destination this time was a big tavern called Nick's, a noisy place on the main drag called Del Monte, near Cannery Row in downtown Monterey. We went right through the middle of town, recalls Terry. Through the traffic and everything. Most of the guys knew Nick's, but not me because I was in jail the other time. We didn't make it till about 3 because we had to wait in the gas station on 101. Some of the other guys were running late. By the time we got there, I guess we had about 40 or 50 bikes. Purdue was already in at about 75, and people kept coming in all night. There were about 300 from all over, man. The stated purpose of the gathering was the collection of funds to send the body of a former Angel back to his mother in North Carolina. Kenneth Country Beamer, vice president of the San Bernardino chapter, had been snuffed by a truck a few days earlier in a desert hamlet called Jacumba, near San Diego. Country had died in the best outlaw tradition, homeless, stone broke, and owning nothing in this world but the clothes on his back and a big bright heart. As the others saw it, the least they could do was send his remains back to the Carolinas, to whatever family or memory of a home might be there. It was the right thing to do, Terry said. The recent demise of Letty lent the 64 affair a tone of solemnity that not even the police could scoff at. It was the sort of gesture that cops find irresistible. Final honors for a fallen comrade, with a collection for the mother, and a bit of the uniform pageantry to make the show real. In deference to all this, the Monterey police had let it be known that they would receive the Angels in a spirit of armed truce. It was the first time in years that the outlaws had been faced with even a semblance of civic hospitality. And it turned out to be the last, for when the sun came up on that bright Pacific Saturday, the infamous Monterey rape was less than 24 hours away from making nationwide headlines. The Hells Angels would soon be known and feared throughout the land. Their blood, booze, and semen-flecked image would be familiar to readers of the New York Times, Newsweek, The Nation, Time, True, Esquire, and the Saturday Evening Post. Within 6 months, small towns from coast to coast would be arming themselves at the slightest rumor of a Hells Angel invasion. All 3 major television networks would be seeking them out with cameras, and they would be denounced in the U.S. Senate by George Murphy, the former tap dancer. Weird as it seems, as this gang of costume hoodlums converged on Monterey that morning, they were on the verge of making it big, as the showbiz people say. And they would owe most of their success to a curious rape mania that rides on the shoulder of American journalism, like some jeering, masturbating raven. Nothing grabs an editor's eye like a good rape case. We really blew their minds this time, man, as one of the Angels explained it. According to the newspapers, at least 20 of these dirty hopheads snatched 2 teenage girls, aged 14 and 15, away from their terrified dates, and carried them off to the sand dunes to be repeatedly assaulted. A deputy sheriff summoned by one of their erstwhile dates said he arrived at the beach and saw a huge bonfire, surrounded by cyclists of both sexes. Then the 2 sobbing, near hysterical girls staggered out of the darkness, begging for help. One was completely nude, and the other had on only a torn sweater. Here, sweet Jesus, was an image flat guaranteed to boil the public blood and foam the brain of every man with female flesh for kin. 2 innocent young girls, American citizens, carried off into the dunes and ravaged like Arab horrors. One of the dates told police they tried to rescue the girls, but they couldn't reach them in the mob scene that erupted once the victims were stripped of their clothing. Out there in the sand, in the blue moonlight, in a circle of leering hoodlums, they were penetrated again and again. The next morning, Terry the Tramp was one of 4 Angels arrested for forcible rape, which carries a penalty of 1 to 50 years in prison. He denied all knowledge of the crime, as did Mother Miles, Molly Marvin, and Crazy Cross. But several hours later, with bonds set at a lowly $1,100 each, they were lodged in the Monterey County Jail in Salinas, out there in Steinbeck country, the Hot Lettuce Valley, owned in the main by smart second-generation hillbillies who got out of Appalachia while the getting was good, and who now pay other less smart hillbillies to supervise the work of Mexican braceros, whose natural fitness for stoop labor has been explained by the ubiquitous Senator Murphy. They're built low to the ground, he said, so it's easier for 'em to stoop, you know. Indeed, and since Senator Murphy has also called the Hells Angels the lowest form of animals, it presumably follows that they are better constructed for the mindless rape of any prostrate woman they might come across as they scurry about from one place to another, with their dorks carried low like water wands. Which is not far from the truth, but for different reasons than California's ex-Lightfoot senator might have us believe. Nobody knew, of course, as they gathered that Saturday at Nick's, that the Angels were about to make a publicity breakthrough, by means of rape, on the scale of the Beatles or Bob Dylan. At dusk, with an orange sun falling fast into the ocean just a mile or so away, the main event of the evening was so wholly unplanned that the principal characters, or victims, attracted very little attention in the noisy crowd that jammed Nick's barroom and spilled out into the darkening streets. Jerry says he noticed the girls and their dates only as part of the overall scene. The main reason I remember him is I was wondering what the hell a white pregnant girl was doing with a bunch of suede dudes. But I figured it was her business, and I wasn't hurting for pussy anyway. I had my old lady with me. We're separated now, but when we were doing okay, she wouldn't have none of me hustling anything else while she was around. You can believe that. Besides, hell, when you're seeing old friends you haven't seen in a year or two, you don't have time to pay attention to strangers. The only thing Terry and all the other Angels agree on, in relation to the victim's first appearance, is that they sure as hell didn't look no 14 and 15, man. Those girls looked every bit of 20. Police later confirmed the girls' ages, but all information about them, including their names, was withheld in accordance with California's policy of denying press access to rape victims. I can't even say if those girls were pretty or not, Terry went on. I just don't remember. All I could say for sure is that we didn't have no trouble at Nick's. The cops were there, you know, but only to keep people away. It was the same old story every place we go now. Traffic piling up on the street outside, local badasses prowling around, young girls looking for kicks. A bunch of Nick's regular customers just digging the party, man. The cops did right by staying around. Everywhere we go, there's some local hoods who want to find out how tough we are. If the cops weren't there, we'd end up having to hurt somebody, you know? Hell, nobody wants trouble on a run. All we want to do is have some fun and relax. It is said, however, that the Hells Angels have some offbeat ideas about fun and relaxation. If they are, after all, the lowest form of animals, not even Senator Murphy could expect them to gather together in a drunken mass for any such elevated pastimes as ping pong, shuffleboard, or whist. Their picnics have long been noted for certain beastly forms of entertainment, and any young girl who shows up at a Hells Angels bonfire at 2 in the morning is presumed, by the outlaws, to be in a condition of heat. So it was only natural that the two girls attracted more attention when they arrived at the beach than they had earlier in the convivial bedlam at Nick's. One aspect of the case overlooked in most newspaper accounts had to do with elementary logistics. So how was it that these two young girls happened to be on a deserted midnight beach with several hundred drunken motorcycle thugs? Were they kidnapped from Nick's? And if so, what were they doing there in the first place, aged 14 and 15, circulating all evening in a bar jammed wall to wall with the state's most notorious gang of outlaws? Or were they seized off the street somewhere, perhaps at a stoplight, to be slung over the gas tank of a bored-out Harley, and carried off into the night, screaming hysterically, while bystanders gaped in horror? Police strategists, thinking to isolate the Angels, had reserved them a campsite far out of town, on an empty stretch of dunes between Monterey Bay and Fort Ord, an Army basic training center. The reasoning was sound. The beasts were put off in a place where they could whip themselves into any kind of orgiastic frenzy without becoming dangerous to the citizenry. And if things got out of hand, the recruits across the road could be bugled out of bed and issued bayonets. The police posted a guard on the highway in case the Angels got restless and tried to get back into town. But there was no way to seal the camp off entirely, nor any provision for handling local innocents who might be drawn to the scene out of curiosity, or other, darker reasons not covered in police training manuals. The victims told police they had gone to the beach because they wanted to look at the cyclists. They were curious. even after several hours at Nick's, which was so crowded that evening that most of the outlaws took to pissing in the parking lot rather than struggle inside of the bathroom. Hell, those broads didn't come out here for no sing-song, said Terry. They were loaded, and they wanted to get off some leg, but it just got to be too many guys, you know? To start with, it was groovy for 'em. Then more and more guys came piling over the dunes. Yeah, pussy. You know, that kind of thing. And the broads didn't want it. The Suede dudes just split. We never saw 'em again. I don't know for sure how it ended. All I knew then was that they had some mamas out there in the dunes. But me and my old lady went and crashed pretty early. I was so fucking wasted I couldn't even make it with her. No family newspaper sought to quote the Angel version. But 6 months later, playing pool in a San Francisco bar, Frenchie remembered it this way. One girl was white and pregnant, the other was colored, and they were with 5 colored studs, you know. They hung around Nick's about 3 hours on Saturday night, drinking and talking with our riders. Then they came out to the beach with us, them and their 5 boyfriends. Everybody was standing around the fire drinking wine. You know, some of the guys were talking to them, hustling them naturally. And pretty soon somebody asked the 2 chicks if they wanted to be turned on. You know, did they want to smoke some pot? They said yeah. And when they walked off with some of the guys to the dunes, the Spade went with a few guys, and then she wanted to quit. But the pregnant one, she was really hot to trot. First 4 or 5 guys, she was really dragging into her arms. But after that, she cooled off too. By this time, though, one of their boyfriends had gotten scared and gone for the cops. And that's all it was. The next morning, said Terry, I rode in with somebody. I don't remember who it was. To some drive-in on the highway where we got some breakfast. When we got back to the beach, they had a roadblock set up with those 2 broads sitting in there in the cop car, looking at everybody. I didn't know what was going on, but then a cop said, "You're one," and they slapped the cuffs on me. Those goddamn girls were fucking giggling, righteously laughing. You know, ha ha, that's one of them. So off I went to the bucket for rape. When we got to the jail, I said, "Hey, I want to be checked out. Let's see a doctor. I ain't had no intercourse in 2 days. But they wouldn't go for it. Marvin and Miles and Crazy Cross were already there. We figured we were deep in the shit until they told us bail was only $1,100. Then we knew they didn't have much of a case. Fucking bastards. Meanwhile, out on Marina Beach, the rest of the Angels were being rounded up and driven north along Highway 156 toward the county line. Laggers were thumped on the shoulders with billy clubs and told to get moving. Side roads were blocked by state troopers, while dozens of helmeted deputies, many from neighboring counties, ran the outlaws through the outlet. Traffic was disrupted for miles as the ragged horde moved slowly along the road, gunning their engines and raining curses on everything in sight. The noise was deafening, and it is hard to imagine what effect the spectacle must have had on the dozens of out-of-state late summer tourists who pulled over to let the procession come through. Because of the proximity to an army base, they undoubtedly thought they were making way for a caravan of tanks, or at least something impressive military. And then to see an army of hoodlums being driven along the road like a herd of diseased sheep. What a nightmare for the California Chamber of Commerce. At the county line on US 101, a reporter from San Francisco Chronicle asked Tommy, with another angel, named Tiny, a 6'6", 240-pound outlaw with a shoulder-length pigtail, who later gained nationwide fame for his attack on Get Out of Vietnam demonstrator in Berkeley. "We're ordinary guys," said Tommy. "Most of us work, about half are married, I guess, and a few own their homes, you know. Just because we like to ride motorcycles, the cops give us trouble everywhere we go. That rape charge is bullshit, and it won't stick. The whole thing was voluntary." "Shit, our bondsman will have those guys out in 2 hours, said Tony. "Why can't people let us alone anyway? All we want to do is get together now and then, you know, have some fun, just like the Masons or any other group." But the presses were already rolling, and the 8-column headline said, "Hell's Angels gang rape." The Masons haven't had that kind of publicity since the 18th century, when Casanova was climbing through windows and giving Brotherhood a bad name. Perhaps the Angels will one day follow the Freemasons in the bourgeois image. But by then, some other group will be making outrage headlines. The Hovercraft Gang, or maybe some once planned fraternal group, tooling up even now for whatever the future might force. What is the trend in Kiwani? Are there rumors in Oakland of a new militancy in that outfit? A radical firmament that could drastically alter the club's image? In the drift and flux of these times, it is easy enough to foresee a Sunday morning, 10 or 20 years hence, when a group of middle-aged men wearing dark blazers with Hells Angels crests on the pockets will be pacing their mortgaged living rooms and muttering sadly at a headline saying, Kiwani's gang rape, 4 held, others flee, bringing their side. And in some shocked American city, a police chief will be saying, as the Monterey chief did in 1964 of the Hells Angels, they will not be welcomed back because of the atmosphere created.